Welcome everybody to the seventh annual FridaFest Women's Empowerment Panel. Today we have Judge Renee Rodriguez Betancourt, Kimberly Mendoza, Sally Jaime, Emmy Perez, Julieta Corpus, and Gabriela Gutierrez. Today this panel will be spearheaded by Julieta Corpus, who's a local poet. And let me give the floor to Julieta.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Julieta Corpus. I will be moderating this panel on women's empowerment. I want to thank Magdiel Castle for inviting me, and and I want to thank everybody who's participating in the empowerment panel as well. I would like to start with a quote, and that's a quote by Nancy Pelosi, who says, "Women are leaders everywhere you look, from the CEO who runs a Fortune 500 company to the housewife who raises her children and heads her household. Our country was built by strong women, and we will continue to break down walls and defy stereotypes." I thought that was a wonderful quote, very strong, to kick off this panel with equally strong women here. So I would like to ask the women on the panel to introduce themselves. I would like for you to tell me your name, your profession, and how many years you've served in this profession. Ms. Gabriela Gutierrez, please. Introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name is Gabriela Gutierrez, but most people call me Gabi. And currently in the last 5 years, I dedicated myself full time to the fitness industry. Before that, I had other type of professions. I first worked for a local TV station, and I was an on-air talent doing different things from weather reports to community reports and entertainment, hosting. And then I went to work for a hospital as a cancer patient advocate after I became a cancer survivor. But in the fitness industry, the last 5 years, and it is a joy to be able to contribute to people's lives in teaching them how to have a healthier lifestyle in order to prevent diseases, going through cancer. I wouldn't want anybody to get sick if they can prevent it.
Thank you, Gabby, for that. Let's go on to Ms. Renee Betancourt.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, thank you to the City of Edinburgh, to the Cultural Arts Committee for this invitation. I am honored to be part of this panel along with some amazing women. My name is Judge Renee Rodriguez Betancourt. I am the judge of the 449th District Court here in Hidalgo County. The 449th District Court was created maybe about 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago, for purposes of presiding over juvenile cases. Those are children ages 10 through 16 who have found themselves violating the law, specifically under the Texas Penal Code. The majority or all of the cases I preside over are juvenile cases. I take pride in my court because it does give me the opportunity to see some of the issues that these young children are dealing with and really come to terms to find out why they are even before my court. And so there's been a lot of issues that I have advocated for in the past 4 years that I've been on the bench, which is mental health, trauma, PTSD, a lot of these factors that I see every day that these children are facing. And unfortunately, they find themselves in my court. I am proud to say that I will be serving another 4 years on the bench. I did not gain an opponent this past election cycle, so I'm very excited to hopefully kick off the first ever Hidalgo County Juvenile Drug Court and the first ever Hidalgo County Juvenile Mental Health Court for females. So again, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here this afternoon.
Thank you and congratulations. And I would like Ms. Emmy Perez to introduce herself.
Thank you, Julieta, and thank you to everyone who organized this panel. It's a real honor to be here with all these amazing women. So my name is Emmy Perez. I've lived in Texas, the Texas borderlands for the past 20 years. I'm originally from Santa Ana, California. I guess I've been a poet ever since I wrote my first poem. probably in 5th grade, but I didn't really know it until I had the opportunity to take poetry writing classes in college. I've lived in LA, New York, New Mexico, and I moved to El Paso, where my mom's from, back in the year 2000. So I started my career in education at the university level in the year 2000, 20 years ago. And currently I'm a professor of creative writing at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. And I'm also the associate director of the Center for Mexican American Studies. But I don't feel like that defines me entirely, because I like to do a lot of community-based work as well. And before I became a professor, I worked in adult basic education. I've worked with women prison inmates. I've also worked with the juvenile population in boot camp situations, taking creative writing into the detention centers. I've had the fortune of going into the Edinburgh Juvenile Detention Center and the Juvenile Court Conference Committee back maybe like 10 years ago, and also working with an adult population in Edinburgh back when they used to have an adult boot camp. And I've brought my students along with me. And so I really enjoyed having my students get involved in helping in the community. And I also do other kinds of community-based work that's too long to detail right now, but I'm currently the Texas Poet Laureate. So part of my job is to be a poet and to travel the state and to promote poetry across the state, although in the pandemic, my travel is on Zoom.
Sure. Thank you, Emmy. And Ms. Kimberly Mendoza, you could please introduce yourself.
And good afternoon, everybody. It's certainly an honor and a pleasure to be part of this amazing panel comprised of strong and powerful women. My name is Kimberly Mendoza. I have recently joined the City of Edinburgh in the role of Director of Planning and Zoning. Prior to my arrival here at the City of Edinburgh, I served in another municipality in the role as senior planner. I have 22 years of planning experience in municipality and local government. I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Mendoza. And now I would like Ms. Celi Jaime to please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Sally Jaime. I am currently a lieutenant for the Edinburgh Fire Department. I joined the fire department right out of high school in 2002, and I've been in the fire service for 18 years now. In 2006, I became a career firefighter. And so I currently hold the position of a lieutenant. But within the fire department, I've been able to do many different things, some of which I've been able to work with children. I've been able to do fire prevention. I joined the clown program that goes across all the schools in Edinburgh, teaching fire prevention. I was a clown for that. I also was part of a youth group for about 10 years, in which we kind of instill some civil duties in them, and we also kind of teach them some of the fire department traits. And then I've also I've been awarded Firefighter of the Year for the City of Edinburgh, as well as the district. I am very proud to be an Edinburgh Fire Department firefighter, and I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you.
Well, before we launch into the questions, I did a little bit of research about female firsts. So first females, here we go. So first personal trainer, there's a long history of personal fitness there with a lot of different people. And I couldn't pinpoint the first one, but Jane Fonda came up with the fitness craze of the 1980s. I remember working out to her. And also Jillian Michaels from The Biggest Loser, so fitness center. Judge, the first female judge I found Genevieve Rose Klein, who was appointed by then President Calvin Coolidge in 1928. First female firefighter, Molly Williams, New York, 1815. The first female poet laureate was Miss Mona Van, and I can't really pronounce the last name, D-U-Y-N. And I was surprised, and I guess crestfallen to learn this was 1992 to 1993. Recent. followed by Lori Ann Guerrero, Chicana Poet, San Antonio, 2014 to 2016, and then the Poet Laureate for Texas, 2016, 2017. The first businesswoman, this was interesting, Rebecca Lukens, back in 1825, she inherited an iron industry from her father who died at 39 years old. So this was the first executive of an industrial company. And there you have it, a lot of female firsts. I'm sure you can find a lot more than what I was able to scrounge up in a little bit of time. Okay, and now for the questions. These are questions that Magdiel provided me with. And as he mentioned earlier, if you feel you can, it might not be a question that you can answer right away. You still need to think about it. Then you can pass it on to somebody else and then come back to you if time allows. Here's the first question in no particular order that he sent them. So how has the female/male professional structure changed in the last 5 years? Who would like to take this one? The female/male professional structure. How has that been changing in the last 5 years?
I'd like to answer that, Sally.
Okay, Sally, please.
So in my profession, unfortunately, I feel that it hasn't grown very much from the male dominant side to the female changeover. So I've been in the fire department 18 years in total, and it wasn't about 2 years ago that we added 2 other females. So that's a long stretch of time to add more females into the fire department. I don't think it's the fire department's fault. That's not the reason at all. I feel that it's more of our culture and maybe just the way that we think, because if you think about it, you think fire department and you right away think the fireman, or right? And so you don't usually think the fire lady or the firewoman. And so in that way, I feel that just because of that, young girls don't usually will think, oh, I'd like to be a firefighter. But because we are adding some more females into the fire service, I feel that it's becoming more apparent that we are here. And so now I go to schools or I talk to young girls and they want to be firefighters. And so I feel that we have a bright future where we will have more females eventually. And I see it now even across the valley. You know, every other department will have 1 or 2 females. Again, still not a big number, but it's definitely better from, 10 years ago. But so in that sense, we're getting out there, but it's going really, really slow. So in the next 5 years, I feel that we'll continue to grow, but it's definitely a very slow process, at least in the fire service. And hopefully it'll get better.
Thank you for your reply. Who else would like to answer this question or to make a comment about where we are as far as female, male in the last 5 years in your chosen profession? Ms. Gabriela Gutierrez, Ms. Gabby, go ahead.
Decided to commit myself full-time to the fitness industry, but I've always been related to fitness one way or another because I grew up a very active kid. I've always been around sports or gyms or dance lessons and stuff like that. So what I've noticed in the last 5 years is actually the fitness industry is growing exponentially. It is a good thing, obviously, especially in our country where we have such high incidences of obesity and just very bad lifestyle habits. It's a good thing that I see people more and more interested, and also becoming certified in fitness is becoming more accessible. So the interest is growing when it comes to female and men and women in the fitness industry. I think that also is growing because many years ago, most people would relate weight training, for example, more to the men's sector. Women would be afraid of lifting weights. There was a lot of misconceptions that you would get you know, very manly, basically, if you lifted weights, and which is a shame, because then that would have an effect on the health of women. You know, actually, as we age, we all women, we need to lift weights or do some kind of strength training, because we start losing muscle mass. And as a consequence, bones get also weaker, and metabolism slows down. But now we know that the more muscle you have, your metabolism is faster. So now women are getting more interested in actually hitting the gym, which was more for men before. And, you know, that's why Jane Fonda was so popular back then, because she would do more like aerobic exercises. So women would then relate more to that kind of exercise. And now actually the being toned and the muscular body, it's more popular in women. And that's just at the superficial level. But when we talk about it in a deeper level, relating it to health, the information is now more out there. And now there are more female trainers who own their own business, creating more employment, and just to be able to be more independent also financially from their spouses. But the other thing also that is growing in the fitness industry is the online platforms. Now there's more online training, online nutrition assessments, which is very convenient also with these times of coronavirus. So it is a very interesting field to be in right now. Obviously, that makes it very competitive, but there's also a lot of room for growth. And, you know, at the end, is very beneficial to just the health of the country. So we can be, you know, we can reduce all the health and obesity issues that we're having.
Who else would like to contribute on this question about the male, female in the professional world? It's Kimberly Mendoza.
Thank you very much. I believe in the next 5 years, or maybe even sooner than that, there'll be an increasingly number of women in professional and high-level capacities. We'll have more directors, more department heads, more CEOs, more female entrepreneurs, and more women business owners. We're now founding occupations, industries, and roles previously occupied solely by men, such as the fields of math, science, and technology. So I see more women in higher level capacities in the near future.
And that's good for everyone. Thank you, Ms. Curley. Moving on to the next question, and I'm gonna link it to what Gabby just said about the present times, the corona times that we're living in. So what effect has the current pandemic made in female empowerment, if any? Or maybe just narrow that and stick to what Gabby mentioned a while ago, as far as now we're more focused on the laptops, on the iPads for fitness. So in the other fields, what changes have you seen because of this pandemic? How has it affected your profession?
So there's many recent developments with the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, no one was expecting this. Things are constantly changing. They're evolving every single day. And with these recent developments, we need to be on our toes. We're finding ourselves having to make decisions to adapt and adjust to the new normal. And we need to be empowered to make those decisions. So in city government here, we deal a lot with the public. So one of the things that we've changed is having all our meetings on Zoom, such as this one today, our board meetings, our meetings with developers and customers on a day-to-day basis. We're even making some modifications to our office here to keep everyone safe, not just the employees, but the public as well.
I can add on to that as well.
Go ahead, Renee.
So the same, I'm going to follow after Ms. Mendoza. In my court, I had learned to embrace Zoom and utilize it for the purposes of having my hearings done, because my hearings are what is known as an essential hearing. A juvenile detention hearing is mandated by the state, by state law, to happen every 48 hours or within 48 hours from when a juvenile is detained. So I couldn't stop. I had to keep going. And so I embraced Zoom, and it showed that we could multitask, because on top of embracing Zoom, being a district judge, I of course became a homeschool teacher, not a very good one, but I learned how to value family, and I learned that you can juggle everything And I think that technology is making that possible, especially as for us female who do have families or do have other responsibilities outside of the workplace. And I think that that within itself is empowerment, especially when we go back, you know, if we ever go back to what is normal or whatever the new norm is, we're going to know, even, you know, we already kind of juggle it all. We're going to know that we can do it as well and continue to embrace and be innovative on different ideas instead of rejecting, you know, technology and rejecting the new system. But it's working, and it's working well for a lot of us in our positions.
I want to second that. As a parent of two small children, it's a challenge. You know, sometimes I wonder if my kids are doing okay, but it's a privilege to be with them every day and to have this time together, even though it's difficult. As a teacher, as a professor, I feel really fortunate to be able to use Zoom. I think that considering the circumstances of the pandemic has made me more empathetic to different student situations regarding so many different things, work schedules, you know, immigration status. All of these different things are so important that help, even though I'm always aware of them, it has become even more apparent to me, like which students have the technology, which students have the internet, which have high-speed internet to be able to join our discussions. And so I think that during this time, I feel empowered to speak on behalf of people who do not have the resources that all of us here listening right now do. I mean, some people do not even have the internet to be watching this right now. And so I think it's important as women that we always remember the people who cannot participate and to work towards equitable situations, equitable education opportunities. I also want to say that in the poetry world, I'm really grateful because I've been able to see poetry readings by women all over the country now that there are all these Zoom readings and discussions online. I feel really fortunate because we're here in the Valley and I can't just fly to New York to watch an amazing reading, or Chicago or wherever, Austin, Albuquerque. And so in some ways I feel like the technology, those of us fortunate to have it, have been able to make these connections with people all over the country in ways that we haven't before. And that's empowering to me.
Thank you, Emmy. Anybody else? We move on to the next one. Okay, so this one, maybe a bit controversial. I'll throw it out there. How do you navigate power structures in your specific field? Power structures. When I read this question, I was thinking about what I found out as far as the fitness world, with the male-dominated fitness world, and how women felt intimidated to even be in a gym, for example. I mean, a lot of us still do, I guess. Yes, Gabby, go ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but I was trying to reflect more on it. And, you know, I work on my own. I'm basically a freelancer. So I have my own online platform. So I don't have to deal too much with a male higher up or employees, but I have worked at gyms before, and there is an interesting dynamic. I remember when I had a female client, they were usually more receptive to my directions, and when I had a male client, not as much. You know, sometimes they would challenge the exercise I had designed for them. They would, try to go for more instead of what I was telling them to do. And I would explain to them that safety comes first. It's not about, the ego, how much you can do. Some would listen, some would not as much. And also, not to generalize, but there could have been some aspects where you had to be very clear about the kind of professional you were and not give any room to advances, it is a common conception too, that sometimes people go to the gyms to socialize more for the social aspect than the fitness aspect. And you know, I don't want to make it sound bad, but what I'm trying to say, it can give room sometimes for unprofessional social advances. So you have to be very clear. Other than that, I am happy that I work on my own. I kind of make my own rules, but that's all I've noticed in my case.
Who else would like to comment on this power structures in your chosen profession?
Well, I'll add on. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like power. I think I don't welcome the word power very much because I think it goes with ego and pride. Having power, you know, doesn't, when you're in a position like mine or an elected position or even a firefighter, you know, where our main duty or our main purpose is to help others, to serve others. Power doesn't mean to serve. Power means you kind of roll over. And so the way I handle the situations where I feel like people want more power, you know, let's just say in different, you know, different areas that we all kind of work in, you know, it's just about doing what's right. It's about doing your job, doing what's right, and not expecting anything in return. You know, it's about really finding that purpose, whether it's to serve your city or to serve people that are, you know, in danger, to serve, you know, your students. As long as you have a passion for it, you're doing it right. I think good things come, and you'll find that your structure, power structure. So, you know, I'll say the word. You'll find that you move on up. For example, Miss Sally, you know, she moved on up from starting from the ground up, but I'm sure it was because she worked hard, and her main focus wasn't to move up, but to help others. And I think once you do that, everything falls into place. That's why I'm not very, you know, about power structure or power, because those that want power don't want to do, I feel like, are just looking for things for themselves, not so much to help others. And I think that's more important than anything.
Thank you for that. Anyone else want to jump in on this one? Or we move on?
Actually, I just want to add that as an educator, as a professor, I think it's important for me to mention that I think it's only like less than 5% or about 5% of professors in the United States who are Latina, and even fewer of them are full professors. And so when we think about that in the context of the entire country, I think that says something very powerful, because a lot of Latinas do have graduate degrees and can be professors. So I do think that the power structure does benefit certain people, especially men. And I think that it's important that we remember that it's really important to know that, like, for me, teaching is the most beautiful thing. I love teaching. That's the best part of my job. But there are institutional structures in place that are not beneficial for women. They're not beneficial for maternity leave. They're not beneficial for becoming, being in positions of leadership. There are real things that happen in universities that are well documented. I'm not the first to mention these. But I do want to say that I think for me, the way that I handle these power structures is I just try to be honest. I try not to be afraid to say what I think. And, you know, and to be honest, because I want things to improve for the future women, especially the Latinas and the Black and Indigenous people of color who are coming up, so that we can have more representation in our university systems, not only in the Rio Grande Valley, but all over the country. Because, you know, studies show that students, we have so many students from marginalized backgrounds, but the faculty does not represent those backgrounds. And studies also show that students do better when they have representation of people who are from their ethnic groups and their genders as their professors. And so hopefully all of us can try to be really honest about how certain institutional structures are difficult for us to navigate in academia or in any job.
Thank you, Emmy, for that. So I'm going to move on to the next question. And it's phrased like this, and then I'll rephrase it. What do you embody as a leader? Or it can stay that way. But I added to that, What leadership qualities do you possess? Where did you cultivate it? Who were your role models, or who was your role model? Who wants to take this one on? Leadership qualities, role models. How do you go about cultivating a leadership, well, just leadership qualities?
I'm gonna take this one. I just jumped in when I saw the advertisement for FridaFest. My name is Seratna Guadarrama Beltran. I'm a doctor, and I come from Mexico. I've lived here for over a few years already. But I think I can answer this question. I work in the School of Medicine. I'm a faculty there, and I teach medical microbiology. For me, it's been a long journey to get to here. I mean, I wasn't really thinking of coming to the Valley per se, but I have to say that my biggest role model has been my mother. My mother, since I was very little, from what I remember, she got us a huge library for my brother and myself, and it was all about microbes, chemistry. I remember that very well because she wanted to become a chemical engineer. But she was 16 years old when she had me. So it was really quite interesting growing up like that. She's very young, and that's something that I'm very thankful for because she's like my best friend. And but to make a long story short, I've come a long way because I've traveled many countries already thanks to my profession. And it was something that it was not heard of when I was younger, I was little, because coming from a culture, Mexican culture, is not something that it's not well seen, that you become, that you dedicate yourself to science and then become a doctor and then go to different places. I already have 2 kids, by the way. And then I am here teaching in the School of Medicine and teaching science. But it's something that you have to go for it. And if I had not seen my mother, that she was dedicating herself to what she loved most, which was being a mom, but also reading about science, that it was quite possible to do both, probably I wouldn't have been able to go past the barriers that the culture, usually tells us, okay, it's not really well seen that you go here, you go there, and then you dedicate yourself to science, and what about this, what about the other. So that's important to bring it out. And I try as much as I can to, because I have a daughter too, she's 9 years old, and I try to expose her to different things so that she can make a choice. And also in the schools of my kids to bring out science demonstrations, because when you get them in middle school, for example, that's where you get them, their interest, because all of us are inherently scientists. So it's always good to have a critical mind, and also these times, right? So that's in a nutshell. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Guadarrama.
Thank you.
Somebody else wants to take this one on?
I'd like to add
that.
I would say, as a leader, having a crew, just always remember to be honest with them. And my biggest thing is to lead by example. So I never tell them or have them do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And for a lot of the time, a lot of what I have them do, I make sure that I'm doing it right beside them as much as I can, so that they can see that, again, I'm lead by example. But like I said, just being honest with them, knowing, asking them to do things that are real, and also just as a leader, being able to adjust to all the characters, remembering that they're human, that some days some are feeling good, some are feeling not so good, and at the end of the day, we all still have a job to do. So I guess just being cognizant of that, and allow them to be human, and still just being able to get the job done, instilling confidence and everything, so that when we get out there, they can get the job done.
Can I ask, who was your role model? Firefighters in your family?
No firefighters in my family. I actually didn't decide to go into this profession until I was 18. Before that, I thought I was going to be a choir teacher. But I kind of just stumbled on it. I never looked back. I love what I do. I don't have one particular role model, but there is plenty of people in the fire service that I definitely look up to and want to do them a little bit of justice.
I think being serving in a leadership position also means surrounding yourself with those that, may even know a little more than you. I think being a part of a team and making up a team, because as a leader, you're always learning. It's not a know it all, position. It's about always learning, always educating yourself to try to understand things better. And so when you surround yourself with a team that does that and you delegate different duties to them, I think that's what a leader is, and also giving the recognition where recognition is due to your staff. For example, my staff is amazing. I wouldn't survive without them. They, they keep me, on my toes, and they make sure that, everything gets done that needs to get done, because it's hard in my court sometimes. The stories we hear, the information we get, you can walk out of there some days just drained emotionally. So, to have a team that backs you up and does what they know they can do best in their different positions, I think that makes you also a true leader, and that's what embodies leadership.
Thank you for that. We move on. Okay, this one is interesting. What are some common misconceptions people may have about female empowerment? When somebody hears the word female empowerment, what do you think their misconception is? Go ahead, Gabby.
It's muted. There you go. Well, it depends also in what culture they're referring to the term. Some cultures may think that female empowerment can mean getting rid of men, which, for me, it's not the case. It's more working more together and having more access to the same opportunities men have. And could also mean for other people that it looks a certain way. Like if you're a powerful woman, then you have everything. You have kids, you have the husband, you are a great housewife, but also a great professional, and you also have a lot of money, and and it just can look different ways. There's a lot of powerful women out there that don't have kids, or are not married, or are married but without kids, or maybe, they have help in the house, but that doesn't mean they're not, a good wife or a good mother. Maybe they're just, their way of functioning is different. It also doesn't mean that you cannot ask for help. I mean, it doesn't make you less powerful to use resources and get help if you need it. So I just think, it can, for some people, mean something narrow, and it's actually very, very broad, but only in very small cases. I think for the most part, people are very positive about this term.
Anyone else? Female empowerment, or women's empowerment. Intimidating or not?
Okay, I think I just said will say something briefly here. It's been, well, talking about, again, there's different cultures, right? There's the Mexican culture too there, and I have it embedded in my family. It's very strong, and here living in the border, we still have that. So there is still, I have to say, the conception that if you have all these ideas, you're creative in your brainstorming and talking about science, for example, or speaking up, right? Being so enthusiastic about certain areas. There's men who are not really interested in that. But as a matter of fact, there are. There are. And then, and it's important, like Ms. Gabriela Gutierrez was mentioning, that we create a team atmosphere, because that way it can be seen that we are not above or under, we're just, working together. And then the intimidation topic goes out the window right? Because we are just talking like that. But I have to say that there's been instances in my life in which I had to put that aside and not worrying about how I was going to be seen, because in fact I was seen as intimidating. I would come across as intimidating, and some of my colleagues will not tell me directly, but then I would try to be more of a team player rather than anything else. And but that's what's the objective, to be a team player, because nothing can be achieved without the teamwork, of course. And I think that as women, we can get to that rather quicker than men. Not that men cannot, of course, but just because we try to be empathetic, to be more inclusive. So,
name 3 things you're most proud of. Go ahead, Gabby.
Well, in order of ¿cómo se dice? In order of, my first language is Spanish, sorry, bear with me. The order it happened, first, surviving cancer, second, sexual harassment, and third, divorce. It might seem not too much for a lot of people, but it's a part of growing up. You know, I'm not a baby, but I also believe I have many years ahead of me. But at 38, there have been a few chapters of my life that none of them were expected. And because they were not expected, I didn't have a guide of how to face each one. But I've noticed that in each one, it's been a strong support system that has got me through it. So I guess if I have to put it in only one, all those 3 are encapsulated by having a great support system. So I'm proud of the connections I've made with my family and my friends, because that will really get you through a lot of unfortunate and unexpected situations. So I know some other people have gotten really depressed about any of these cases I've mentioned, and with all their right, because everybody goes through these things differently. But I'm very proud that I've been able to push forward after each one.
Especially the cancer, I imagine that must have been quite challenging.
I could talk. This is Emmy here. I'm really proud to have 2 feminist children, ages 6 and 8. They're both not women. One is a young woman and the other is a young boy. And I think that it's important that we raise feminist boys as well, and to teach them about the different genders, right? And so we're talking today a lot about female, male, but I like to teach my children to have like understanding that there are different genders beyond those 2 binaries. And so I'm really proud that they're so young and they get it. And it just goes to show like how important it is for us to talk to our children in ways that go towards now and towards the future, so that we can have equality for all people. And, I try to buy books for them. They're very fortunate. I buy a lot of books. I'm a poet and a professor, so they're really privileged to get lots of books, but I try to buy books to help them in that direction. We talk about these things very clearly, hopefully, and directly. I don't try to shy around these issues. Like my daughter the other day was saying, well, how come, both she and I were saying the shorts for 8-year-olds are so much shorter than the shorts for boys. Like we're already noticing that the fashion industry objectifies women, like young girls at such a young age. And we noticed that the boys' basketball shorts have pockets and the girls don't. And so she said, buy me some boys' shorts because they're better, right? And so, we're noticing these things, and I love that she's noticing these things. And the younger one, the boy, is listening and trying to make sense of this. So that's one of the things I'm proud of. Maybe I'll just stop with that because I've already talked a lot, but I do have other things I'm proud of. But that's my main thing.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd add to that, Sally.
Sally, go ahead.
Yes. So for my 3 things, I think that the first one would definitely be my profession. I love telling people what it is that I do, and I love what it is that I do. So definitely my profession. I'm very proud to be a firefighter. Second would be my education. I do hold multiple degrees. Being the first in my family to go to college, it makes me feel great. So I'm very proud of that. And finally, probably being a mom. I have a 15-year-old daughter. She is already a very strong-minded individual, very confident, and it makes me happy to know that she is that way.
Okay, thank you, Sally.
I'll add on to that as well.
Yes, go ahead.
Of course, I'm proud of my little family, my 3 daughters and my husband. I'm proud of my education because it's opened the doors and put me in a position where I can help others and do something that can hopefully help someone change their life. And lastly, I'm extremely proud of my parents. My parents came from nothing, 8th grade education, migrant workers, still migrate to this day. They just actually returned back from Uvalde. My father packages watermelon. And my mother makes food for the workers, and this is what they know, this is what they love. And they raised myself and my 2 older brothers. They educated us, not so much with, knowledge from books, but they educated us about the knowledge of life. Respect others, work hard, and always treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think those virtues and morals have made it possible for my brothers and I, and along with their grandchildren, to go further than they could have ever imagined. So I'm extremely proud of my parents.
Thank you. I'm proud to be bilingual. Yay. Strong in 2 languages. Sí se pudo. What are the biggest challenges you face as women? Well, we all face, but the question is for you. Biggest challenges for women right now? What do you think those are? They could be very personal though also. Doesn't have to be very broad.
So for all women, I think the biggest challenge, I think the biggest challenge I see is a competition between women. We shouldn't be competing against each other. We should be empowering each other. We should help each other. We don't have to like each other. Of course, personalities don't always mix well, but as long as there's respect, and that's what sometimes, unfortunately, the male beings take advantage of. They know that we will talk about each other. They know that we will fight about each other, gossip about each other. And I'm raising 3 girls, and I find it very important to stress to them that at the end of the day, you may not like everybody, I understand, but you have to respect them. And if you respect them, then it ends there and it doesn't continue on. And I think that the problem, with women or in between women is we need to learn how to empower each other, how to say nice things to each other, compliment each other, and just be good to each other. I think women, if numbers are right and we're going to get the census coming up in 2020, you're going to see that the number of women, is going to be very high. The number of women in positions, the number of women in general, even in a campaign, bringing women together and going out to go vote can really make a difference in a campaign and an election. So I would just say, I think the biggest problem is that we need to start fostering that more. We need to start encouraging women empowerment. And I think that's why I love these panels, because I think that's what we accomplish that. So we need to teach the younger generation that as well.
Thank you, Renee. Anyone else wants to talk on this? The biggest challenges for women right now?
Well, to add on to that, I think that is the confidence in oneself. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Oh, okay, there we go. Yes, can you hear me? Yes, okay. So just to add on to what has been said, I think that a very big factor is the confidence in oneself. Being a woman, there's still a lot of stigma, there's still a lot of expectations. right? And not necessarily good expectations per se. So seeing oneself at the same level as men, that's very important at a very young age. That the only thing that differentiates us is just physiology, is the physiology pretty much, right? Because our brains, they work, they have the potential just to work the same. So that's where it all comes from, to be on that. And that's where I have to bring in again the science, because if we go down to the basic science of things, then we can understand better, and we can understand that we can accomplish just as many things. And just like young boys too, as I have two young boys too, and raise them on the same, you know, with that same thinking. That way they can also learn to respect the other gender, right? There's so many connotations from here, but the biggest accomplishment as you move along as a woman in this day and age is to have confidence in what you have to bring. That is extremely important. And the people who surrounds you, your support circle, you know, that plays just as much of an importance, right? And I think that we have heard this before too, but it's unbelievable how much it affects you as you accomplish everything along in your life. So I think that that's very important. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Guadarrama. Anyone else want to speak on this, the challenges?
I'd just like to also add that it's important that we work on our confidence levels, just like we've just previously heard. We must speak confidently. Respect comes when our voices are heard. So make your presence known as a leader and as a collaborator. Another thing is we need to garner support from other women. So I think it's very important to build that or create that sisterhood of women in the workplace.
Yes, I agree. Very important in any workplace, actually. Okay, I'm gonna throw out the last question. Not throw it out, I'm gonna state it. So here it is. What are the most critical changes that we must make to face our future effectively as women? The most critical changes, I think one of them was already mentioned, is keep building that self-confidence is huge. What are other things out there that that you can advise us to build on to face our future in our chosen profession? Yes.
I think it's just being mindful of the culture we are in, and how to take the good things about it, but still be conscious on what needs to be improved. Because I don't want to take away from all the opportunities that we have now that our previous female ancestors didn't. I mean, if we don't even have to go that far. If we just think about our grandmothers, I'm sure the professional opportunities out there were less, and their expectations to be more at home and have, you know, most of them would have 10 kids or 8, and that would be normal. And then we go to the next generation, our mothers, they still were expected to be a lot at home, but with some freedom to also work. And there were some professions, they didn't just find jobs as a secretary, that there were, which is a great profession, but what I'm trying to say, there were more, like a wider variety of opportunities. They would still be expected to have kids, but not 10, maybe 3. And now we see a lot of women out there working in professions that normally would be considered just for men. Maybe they have kids, maybe they don't, maybe they just have one, maybe they're not married. So, you know, there's definitely more freedom to have different roles and not just one. So I don't want to take away from that, but it is very funny mentioning all this, how sometimes still the culture reminds us that we still have room for growth. Because just to give an example, when the Me Too movement started, you know, you think about it, it's kind of funny that there had to be a campaign where, when we actually know that sexual harassment or assault in the workplace is illegal. And I mean, you can report it, and at many workplaces, then they even give you a training for that. But it still happens because it doesn't matter what the law says. I mean, the culture still needs to catch up, because there's a reason why women don't report it, because of the shame that comes with it, and the lack of belief. So culturally speaking, we could make some advancements. I identify with that because I've been in that situation and I understand completely. So again, I acknowledge that we're better than before, but there's still room for growth. And, you know, maybe when that changes, then I don't know, that'll trickle down to see more women doing more representation. And, you know, one day maybe we'll have finally a female president. And there's nothing bad with a male president. I just think it will be good for a change too.
I applaud that sentiment. So, someone else who would like to contribute to that question about the critical changes that we need to make for the future?
Well, I think that adding on to what has been said before too, that as we raise males, sons, that we continue on that line of that inclusivity, that we are all one big team, because I think that's where it's a very important factor, to do that re-education. We have to do a huge re-education of the male, in the male community, because it's not enough, you know, just like another one of the panelists was mentioning too, is for the ones who we have sons, but also even if you don't have sons, even if you don't have kids, you know, try to, in every opportunity there is, to re-educate the notions or the thinking of what is it to be a male in this society, what is it to be a female, what is it to be binary too, you know. It's very important that we set out there, you know, what's the significance of that and how we can help each other out. And the way I do it personally is just, of course, leaning back on my science, because that lays pretty much, those are facts as of now. They're not opinions, they're facts. And so the physiology says much, and it pretty much lays the groundwork for everything else, and it's very straightforward. And I just have to say, like, it's not related, but I have to say that for racism, for example, there's no such thing as races. There's only one human race. And so by not having, you know, these parameters and being ignorant, you know, on what is real, it actually bifurcates, or it actually goes on to a lot of misconceptions. And so that's what's important, to have the facts at hand and incorporate everyone on working together.
Anyone else want to touch on that point, with the critical changes that we must make for the future as women?
I just want to reiterate a point I made earlier, which is that we always need to be thinking of the people who do not have as many privileges as we do in our country and globally, and to think if we want to achieve greater freedom and liberation, that we also need to be thinking about the needs of other people who do not have the privileges that we do. And so when I think about trans women, when I think about immigrant women, when I think about Black women, when I think about Indigenous women, I'm always trying to think, what do they need before I think about what I need, or what do the people in my community need before I think about what I need, because we need to lift them up more so than us. And we'll all come together, right? And that requires everybody's participation. That requires, you know, changing laws in some cases, that requires voting, that require, for those of us who can vote, that requires activism, and just everyday acts of kindness for people who may be different than we are. And to always remember that our society is built on, you know, capitalism, and the patriarchy supports capitalism. And so to remember that it's all about, for me, all about money in the end, right? So all of these power structures are related to money and who's making the most money and how can we get other people to make less money. And so, you know, studies show that women make a lot less money than men do. And so, you know, we just all need to work together for equality in so many different ways.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Amy. Anyone else? Okay, so we're gonna do, or I'm going to ask Amy if she could please share a poem, and then I'll thank all of the panelists, and we'll call it a day.
Okay, since Julieta asked me today and I didn't prepare anything, I thought I would share, I don't know, can you see this book? Can you see the face at least of Lucille Clifton? Lucille Clifton is a wonderful poet. Look at how big her book is. It's so thick, of her collected poems. I had the fortune of taking one of her classes when I was a graduate student in the 90s at Columbia University. And so she has a great body of work. She's a Black woman. And so I want to share this very short poem of hers, so it's not mine, called Won't You Celebrate With Me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. And again, that's a poem by Lucille Clifton.
Wonderful, wonderful poet, and a wonderful reading by Amy Perez, a Texas Poet Laureate. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Kimberly, Sally, Ms. Guadarrama. Thank you so much for your time and for your honesty, your answers. Everything was wonderful, and it's been my honor to be your moderator in this panel.